because in my mind, I was taught everybody in the Bible, God, Christ, the angels, the Israelites were Caucasian. He says, show me they were Caucasian, and I couldn't do it. So I felt much shame and disappointment on myself. And he said, you don't know anything about yourself, your race, you need to be ashamed of yourself. And I was about, I'd say 17, 18 when that occurred. And I remember going home and asking my mother about Song of Solomon chapter 1, where Solomon says, I am black but comely. She told me it doesn't mean that. It meant he was very sad.
Is his mother right? Is that Solomon even talking? I'm talking about him or his mother. Is Solomon talking right there, Alan? Alan didn't hear that? All right. Is Solomon even talking right there?
No, that's the woman. That's his beloved.
Why would, now he's a bishop now. Let's see how he handles the text. Let's see how he handles the text. This is important. This is important now, because when they start talking about Judah mourneth and the gates languish thereof, in its context, is it talking about black people being Judah, being black people? That's what we want to deal with right now. Are people just doing too much? Because people, and it's possible, are people doing too much? Let me let the bishop talk himself, and let's see who's just going to go along with it because he got the title of a bishop.
So because I didn't really know the Bible, I said, okay, I left it alone. And as I grew, I went into the Kemetic community. From the Kemetic community, I went to the Nation of Islam. And by 1990 is when another friend of mine named Black, we called him Black as a nickname, he gave me a flyer. On this flyer, it had scriptures like Job 30:30, where the prophet Job said, my skin is black upon me.
Now, remember, he already confessed that he didn't know the Bible when he was talking about the Song of Solomon. Then years later, somebody said, we don't know that he ever came to know the Bible yet or be born again. None of that came into subject yet. Job 30:30, my skin is black upon me. You want to pull that up, Dunamis? Because if we're using that to prove that Judah is black, and I'm not saying blue-eyed folk. I'm not saying that. But if Job 30:30 don't mean that, we can never make it mean what it ain't never meant to mean. I hope y'all understand what I mean. Fair use.
And my bones burned with heat. Lamentations 4:8, Lamentations 5:10, Jeremiah 14:2, Judah mourneth, the gates thereof languish, they are black unto the ground.
This is just disrespect to the black race. Anybody that's black that know how to read the English language and look up at this good King James Bible, because they telling us King James black, blackity black, 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 everybody black. So King James black, if we read the King James, the black King James words in its context, is that what it's conveying to us, the ethnicity of these people in the context in which he quote all four of these verses? Come on, Dunamis, let me put your thing on the screen.
Not.
Read that. Somebody said, not. Why would you say you trying to stop the awakening? Y'all love that white man.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Hamisi Saidi said I'm supporting it earlier in your show.
Come on, read that right there. I'm muting myself. I gotta walk. I'm gonna go.
All right. So we gotta first go to King James version.
He asked him a skin identity question. He had no answer for that. He goes in the Kemetic community, which seems to answer that for black people, or at least some black people feel like it answers that. All right. And then, but he don't stay there. He then goes to the Nation of Islam that seemingly answers that too. That question about identity. But he doesn't stay there. All right. So what happens as time progresses?
And by 1990 is when another friend of mine named Black, we called him Black as a nickname, he gave me a flyer. On this flyer, it had scriptures like Job 30:30, where the prophet Job said, my skin is black upon me and my bones burned with heat.
So now what we see now is Mr. Pete asked him the identity skin question. It bothers him because he had no answer. And then he goes into the Kemetic community, which seems to answer the identity thing for black people. But he doesn't stay there. Then he goes to the Nation of Islam. That seems to answer that question. Doesn't stay there because a guy gives him a packet, a little flyer, using scriptures, and the packet's emphasis was not on repent of your sins. You know, you're a dredged sinner who worships false gods, sir. It wasn't that. It was Job's black. Because look, this passage says, my skin is black upon me. This is the color of these people. The real whoever is this complexion. So you see all this identity stuff, all right? So this is what all this is rooted in. No gospel insight yet, all right?
Lamentations 4:8, Lamentations 5:10, Jeremiah 14:2, Judah mourneth, the gates thereof languish, they are black unto the ground. And the cry of Jerusalem going up. And I was like, wait a minute. It sounds like the people in the Bible are black. He showed me Moses, Exodus 2.
I just want to say this, brothers and sisters. I want y'all to think about the scriptures. But I also want y'all to think about when he's talking and what he's saying and what he's thinking, that based off these flyers and these passages, the way they're painting the Israelites to be, all right, by their belief system, is that the Israelites in the Bible were so like low and so cautious of their skin that in the scriptures, even like at random points, where it don't even make sense to say it, they just shout out, I'm black. I'm black. So, okay, so for example, in Jeremiah, we reference Judah mourneth and gates thereof languish, they are black unto the ground. The word there for black literally means dark, they're lowly, they're sackcloth and ashes, mourning, not black skin tone. All right, but that's what the word there means. But because in English it says black, and these men don't like Greek or anything like that, it's King James only, because they believe King James only. They believe King James was a black man, and that's the true translation. So that's why they only use King James Bibles. But at random points, like Matt, put yourself in Jeremiah's shoes here. He's watching the places up in ruins, burnt up. The people are crying. They're going into exile and captivity. And what's on his mind? He said, Judah mourneth, the gates thereof languished, and they're empty. They ain't got no scribe, no elders, nobody there to shout the laws of God, because now people are going to exile. And he's like, they are black. Like, bro, that's so random to shout out in the middle of your crying. Why is that a concern for you? And if everybody know they black, why you got to say that in your writing? If the whole nation's black, he black, everybody black he looking at, why in the midst of his tears and crying about the condition of their nation, does he say they're black skin unto the ground? Like, that don't even make sense. It don't make sense, but for them it makes sense because they're trying to find something to make them feel good about being black. All right. And it ain't just about being black. They want to be special people. It's not enough to be dark skinned, but descend from some ancient African people that was like chewing on bones or something like that and worshiping false gods. No, you can't be a slave and then find out you came from there. You gotta be a slave that comes up and you're triumphant, you're a descendant of a king, pharaoh, or somebody. You gotta be like that. All right. And so, as you guys can see, the mindset while he's approaching the scriptures, this is what's grooming him. All right.
Where he passed for an Egyptian. Joseph in Genesis passed for an Egyptian. And I knew the ancient Egyptians were black people. I knew that. Acts, the book of Acts, I believe it's 21:37. The apostle Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian. That was mind-blowing.
Now, I want to mention a couple of things because clearly everybody in the Bible was not monotone. There was black people physically walking around, and some of the people in the Bible were physically black. So I'm not arguing there ain't no black people in the Bible or Moses was European. I'm not arguing that. All right. I'm not arguing that. What I'm trying to get you guys to understand, because you got to understand what's driving him. All right. And this doctrine that they push and why everything's about skin tone, nation, ethnic race, why everything's like that. The people who lived at that time, all right, talking about Moses and all of them, as these things are happening and they're experiencing the Lord, all right, the God that made everyone, do different things, show his displeasure with sin, bringing judgments down, things like that. Their minds were fixated on the sins they were committing that caused God to be angry with them, or the wondrous works that God was doing among his people, showing mercy and kindness. They were not so subconscious of how they looked that they're in the midst of mourning and they shout, "We are black." Job scratching stuff off his skin. He's got a freaking skin disease now, and he disfigured, and people don't even know what he looks like. And he's like, I am black. Like,